The Obsessive Love by Xuckyxheese Chapter 6. Unforeseen Encounter. Can you do it? It is optional. I don't want you to force or anything to you at all. No, I can do it. I have to. Why? Because I am the daughter of the Chaos Creator. I guess I can't stop you now. Quickly go before your father wakes up. A father? Can I ever make him proud? Dawn mumbled words only for her to hear. Dawn had arrived safely into the world with the help of Veldanava, taking her time walking in the Jura forest. She who was a skill was born to the abyssal realm, seeing only the dark void through and through. Walking through the muddy dirt, observing the greenery surrounding her, taking curious glances on the insects and animals doing their own things. It was such a breathtaking sight for Dawn, but not everything is full of pots and rainbows. Before coming into this place, her father Rimuru explained everything to her on how the things started and the way it ended. Dawn sucked in the massive information that her father gave him, going to a roller coaster of emotions, on how Rimuru saved a bunch of enigmatic children and her supposedly mother. She was happy hearing these stories coming from Rimuru, knowing how her father who started as a slime made connections and reliable allies along the way. And how her father almost lost everything he loved and cherished. Seeing Rimuru's saddened expression, while he explained on how the kingdom of Falmouth invaded and thrashed his place that he built from the very beginning. Dawn hated it. No, she despises it. Her father being sad, Dawn doesn't want it. She wants Rimuru to be happy, showing that genuine smile that he showed from the very beginning. But everything was ruined once more, all because of her significant other. The one Rimuru who trusted the most turned its back and stabbed him. Mana's seal. And that's why Dawn is here for that very reason, not heeding her father's warning. Dawn agreed to Veldanava's plan, turning the different scene, deviating from the original one. She knows what her purpose is. Dawn is only following the things embedded to her. Dawn stopped on her tracks and shakes her head. Would she be grateful for Seal or hate her more? Because of what Seal did, she was born. Dawn was born. But Seal almost killed her father. If it weren't for that old lizard, Rimuru would be dead by now. Calm down, me. This is only for the sake of father's happiness. Dawn eased up her thoughts and released a long sigh. Dawn arrived at the part of the forest where she wanted to. It was days after the past Rimuru fated one perishes. Shizu Izawa. She recalled the fragments of memory she gotten from her father, trying to know who and what Shizu was. Should I also deliver judgment to that Leon when I see him too? Dawn thought. Poke. Wah. Dawn twisted around and quickly tried to counterattack. A crystallized katana materialized into her hand, pointing it directly to the assailant. I definitely shouldn't have done that. Ere I apologize. The assailant quickly raised its hand, showing the sign of surrender. Dawn eyed the attacker. It's only mere seconds before she knew who he is. Father. She lowered down her weapon and stared at the individual who was a tad bit shorter than her. You are good at jokes even in this situation, young lady. Can I lower my arms now? Rimuru coyly replied at her. Blue hair, check. Golden eyes, check. The mask of Shizu at the side of his head, check. It really is father. Wait, no, the past version of him, but why is he in here? Dawn's thoughts were in disarray. It was supposed to be few days after, before the goblins reported, that there'll be a slight skirmish between the Oni and Gobta's group in here. Why are you here? She asked. I'll be turning the same question to you, lady. Why would a noble yourself be here in the first place? Rimuru replied. Huh? Dawn quickly inspected herself. Her crystal blue horns aren't visible due to illusion magic. Her pointed ears are covered in her hair. And with the white garments she is wearing, she could be mistakenly called as a noble. Cough, just some internal conflicts within my family. Oh, and you can put your arms down. Dawn tidied up her clothes and looked down a bit to stare at Rimuru. I see a runaway daughter, but to arrived in the middle of a forest. Quite formidable you are. Anyways, I apologize about what I did. You were frozen in place, so I thought something happened to you. Rimuru wryly smiled while scratching the back of his head. Dawn chuckled as she looks at him. Rimuru on the other hand was confused on why a lady was laughing in his statement. He didn't say anything wrong though. Then why does a small boy is walking around the forest? There are a lot of magical beasts here, you know. Dawn asked this time, and with the seemingly height superiority she has, she is towering over him. Oh ha ha ha. Rimuru tried to think of something that'll make sense on why is he here. But he lost this battle in the end. Dawn is currently carrying Rimuru in his slime form, walking down to a path that leads to the village. Both of them easily opened up to one another, as Rimuru felt a slight familiarity to Dawn that he could not explain. Rimuru was also grateful that Dawn just ignored the thing he did. If he wasn't careful enough, his second life will mark as of the end. As both of them were talking to one another, there was an individual following them few miles behind. Her long bluish-purple hair swayed as she walked slowly, crimson eyes that glowed ever so strongly staring at both Dawn and Rimuru. "Vile individuals must perish," she spoke. "One should not touch the thing that I've owned." Intermission. Resentment few hours before the wedding. Location. The bridal suite. How'd I look? Nothing seems out of shape, right? Is there a part that's crinkled or looks somewhat tattered? Why are you all looking at me with such warm gazes? Chloe started rapid-firing questions, got embarrassed with their gazes onto her. Calm down, my lady. Look, your makeup is going to get ruined. We want you to look good for your about-to-be husband, do you? Shuna, who was applying makeup on her, tried to calm her down, but hearing the word husband makes Chloe feel all jittery of a sudden. Ooh. Chloe shrinks down to her seat in embarrassment. It really is happening, she thought. A dream she once had is happening and had turned into a reality. Time is slowly ticking down, waiting for the event to happen. The day both of them will swear oaths to one another. Everything that happened so far still feels like a dream for Chloe, from calling Rimuru as sensei, as she was still young back then, and turned to a fully grown adult, marrying him, and can finally call him husband. 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 Husby, wait. Does that mean we are going to do that too? Imagining the scene made Chloe's face flushed full red crimson. Both of them bathed into the pale moonlight, with no clothes or cloth, having both of their skin touch one another. Rimuru. We can't do this. Don't worry, Chloe, I'll be gentle, I promise. Rimuru. Chloe. Stop. No, time out. Chloe mentally shook her head. You have properly grown into an adult, but the way your mind works speaks otherwise, the manas inside her spoke. See, Chronoa. How did you? I live inside you, of course I can take a peek on what's on your mind. The scenario is very romantic, I can tell. Chronoa replied to her answer. So what, it's not like you have experienced it either. Oh, oi, don't bring that into this, Chronoa deadpanned. You only kissed Sensei twice. Only twice? That's it? And I am gonna be way ahead of you after this wedding. Why you, that's it, I am taking over this body after the reception and stealing the race from you. I won't let you, Chloe internally screamed with her all. Tempest to Chloe. Hello? Are you there, The makeup is done, my lady, Shuna replied. She went to the back of her, looking at the mirror. Shuna leaned into her ear and spoke in a low tone. Were you having risque thoughts when I said the word husband? Chloe starts stammering with her words, finding difficulty to say something out. Chloe looks at Shuna that has a teasing smile on her face. In fact, the wedding dress Chloe is going to wear to the wedding is somewhat similar of Chronoa, with more flower embroidery patterns and such. Created by Shuna herself, and if things comes to worse, which obviously wouldn't. The gown is battle-oriented, meaning Chloe can kick ass while wearing such thing. And as if the teasing isn't enough, now that I think about it, since you are going to get married to the King of Tempest, should we start calling you with royalty perhaps? Shuna spoke loud enough for the rest of the people in the room to hear. And there's a certain trio that took the bait. The three demoness immediately, who was getting makeup from the assigned goblinas in there, flocked into Chloe with sparkles on their eyes. My eminence. Carrera spoke. What no, similar on how Noir calls master, my liege perhaps? Testarossa replied to Carrera. Don't say that, it feels weird. That's it, our Queen of Tempest, Chloe Tempest. Ultima boastfully declared. Geez, enough already, especially you, Shuna. Stop with the my lady, just call me Chloe as usual. Oofufufufufufu, you have to get used to it, my lady, Shuna replied, covering her mouth while she playfully laughs. Don't worry, my lady, as long as I am breathing, no one can touch a single strand of hair of yours. Xian yelled out joyfully. She even tapped her greatsword that was strapped on the back of her. Even though weapons are restricted in this room. The trio obviously weren't dejected at all and kept pestering about it, but after that, they properly went back to their own chairs for their makeup to be finished. Era, The wedding hasn't even started yet and Chloe is very daring at it. Ruminez, who was awakened from her short slumber due to the loud voices, and walked to Chloe. Ruminez slowly cupped one of Chloe's cheeks, as not to remove the makeup that was on her, while her other hand gently patted her head in a brushing motion. Time flies really fast, does it? Ruminez muttered. She looks at the mirror, seeing Chloe all its glory, with her wearing the wedding gown, her sleek black hair all the way to her back and her beautifully carved face with the makeup on. Gods were really doing their best on creating such beauty known as Chloe Aubert. But I have to admit, Chloe looks up to her. Both dark blue orbs stares at red and blue. If you weren't fast enough, I might have stolen Rimuru from you, Ruminez teasingly said. Chloe was dumbfounded as she can't process directly on what Ruminez said. Ruminez too. Of all people Chloe knew, she knows that a lot of people within Tempest is gunning to get the love of their king in a different level. I guess that's what makes Rimuru special. He even subconsciously bewitched a lineage of a true vampire, Chloe thought. But don't worry, my dear Chloe. You won his love fair and square, and look where it leads you to, marrying him. Ruminez spoke as she took a quick stop. And besides, Ruminez turns her head around looking at a different short-haired black-haired maiden, getting makeup in the corner of the room, and continued. There's another prey that I have set upon that I won't ever let go, licking her dry lips. Stare, stare, stare. Cough. Miss. Is the makeup done? Hinata asked the goblina beside her, trying to divert her attention from that heavy gaze coming from Ruminez. The goblina nodded and Hinata quickly stood up from her chair. The atmosphere here seems kinda thick, so I'll take a fresh air for Abbott. I'll be back, everyone. Still avoiding that gaze from Ruminez. Without getting a reply from everyone, Hinata in a fluid motion hastily went outside the room with sharp movements. It seems a sheep has ran away from the herd. I'll be back too, everyone. Ruminez followed. As the door made the click noise, distant loud noises can be heard. I wonder how's their side doing too, Chloe spoke to herself. Location. Groom's room. Master, isn't that already enough? Benimaru said, looking at the worriedly state the person Rimuru is beating up. Ha ha ha, you should really try and read the mood, Benimaru. Rimuru half-heartedly laughed and replied to him, continually beating up the person in front of him with a aura-imbued paper fan. But I wasn't joking though, Benimaru retorted with his shoulders hung low. With the room filled with heavy killing intent from Rimuru, it is already a miracle to properly stood up straight with sweat profusely overflowing throughout their body, continuously watching the individual getting beat up by Rimuru. At this point Sensei is going to die. It was Zejin that spoken up this time. Smack. He's a true dragon, so he's fine, so even if he dies, smack. All forcefully smack smack. Revive him to the same spot, smack. Until it reaches through that thick skull of his, smack. Rimuru replied, hitting the blonde person in front of him mid-sentences. But my liege. Diablo. One more word and I'll put you back to the underworld. Rimuru coldly stared at him between those hair of his. The rest of the boys who were in there could see an imaginary tail and dog ears in Diablo going limp when Rimuru reprimanded him. Diablo staggered for Abbott before going down on all fours. I see, I have angered my lord twice. First with my mishap in Falmouth and now this, surely I am done for. How laughable, but perhaps if Diablo pulls out his metal claws and points it to his chest. I end it here now, I can atone for the sins that I have. The rest quickly moved and tried stopping Diablo from making a scene. Somebody take that weapon away from him. He's not budging at all. Oi, where's that prideful second secretary of Master? AHK. I really am horrible staying at the second for too long, Bofu. It got worse. Gobta. You're a funny goblin. Do something that'll stop this idiot of a demon here. Ranga. Fuse with me, Sue. Roger. It was a mess. Literally a mess. Luckily, the room was big enough to accommodate all their shenanigans. Ignoring their ruckus, Rimuru stopped beating the person in front of him and glared at him. So Veldora, what day is it? Ah, new episode on that spy based Ani. Rimuru delivered a straight punch right into his cheek. Veldora shook his head and rubbing the swollen face of his. I think I just saw my older brother waving at me at the other side of the river. So, I am your best man that you picked. Obviously I can't forget that. I was too excited that I couldn't get a sleep last night. You have to trust me on this one, Rimuru. Veldora pleads for his life, but he could still see Rimuru smiling with his eyes closed. With a ticked off expression. But I went to your room, and what were you still doing, huh, Veldora? I was hyping myself up. Yes, I was. Is laying down your couch and still stuffing yourself with snacks part of hyping yourself up? It's a new technique I developed, you see, it's very efficient. Guilty or not guilty? Rimuru asked. Guilty. Veldora admitted the truth. Sigh, if only you said it sooner, this could be avoided. Rimuru properly stood up, fixing some wrinkled parts of his white tuxedo. Veldora, who was beaten black and blue, followed, still holding the swollen face of his. Rimuru pulled out a black box from his stomach and handed it out to him. Here's what you'll be wearing for today, and quickly go get your face fixed to cherries. I don't want you looking miserable in front of your sisters. Understa, sisters? Veldora froze as if a binding spell was casted on him. You heard it. Both of them are invited to this wedding and they're thinking of having a family talk within the labyrinth, Rimuru jokingly replied, showing a grin on his face. Rimuru. Veldora spoke in a serious tone. Rimuru looks at him with a baffling look. Veldora's draconic aura has been fully released, as if the aura is forming a new layer within his body. Veldora Tempest, value my life over everything, and such life can't be sacrificed in a stupid way. He spoke with a newfound determined look on his face. Oi! What's with you all of a sudden? Rimuru asked. The scene that Diablo made has already been diffused at a cost with a depressed demon, the rest of them huddled in a corner of the room, forming a barrier to the both Tempest. Just in case things went south. Veldora and Rimuru somehow started walking in circles facing one another, Veldora continuing with his heroic speech while Rimuru looking at him with an exasperated expression. Veldora threw the black box. It went through the barrier, landing on Zejin's hands. A bakan in a scabbard mysteriously appeared in Veldora's hand. He finished his speech and looked at Rimuru once more. Are you done? Rimuru asked, and Veldora replied with a nod. You really like making scenes, do you, brother? Rimuru looks at Veldora, also releasing his own aura. Hey Veldora, your shenanigans days are over. Rimuru offered one of his hands. Now give me my training sword back. Veldora snickered. If you want it, then you have to take it. He imbued the bakan with his aura, but you already knew that. I have a feeling you'll say that. A giant paper fan similar in size with Xian's greatsword appeared on Rimuru's hand. How many times have we fought? Veldora asked. Hard to say. Rimuru rested the paper fan on his shoulder. It's the only memory I have since you started your movie marathon with Ramirez. Both of them grinned to one another. It's time to finish this, Veldora. Once and for all. Rimuru went into his battle stance. Veldora responded on going with his newfound battle stance, similar to a motivational white-haired swordsman. Both Tempest quickly shortened their distance from one another, Veldora delivering a flurry of precise attacks while Rimuru easily parried those attacks with the giant paper fan of his. Why do you learn such useless things in time of peace? Rimuru roared. I guess I was just way too motivated on doing it. Veldora happily replied, deflecting a blow with the intent of him getting chopped in half. As both Tempest is having their daily bout, two new individuals went into the room, looking at the scene in front of them. The man with red hair blew a whistle with both of his hands on the back of his head. The dragon is using a weapon now. Intriguing. He looks at the both of them with both curiosity and excitement. Another individual with blonde hair and jade-colored eyes scurried along the walls and walked to the huddled group of men in the corner. It was Benimaru that noticed him. Hey Masayuki, or should we say Emperor? He spoke. The rest of the group looked at him. You calling me Emperor is nerve-wracking. Anyways, when are they going to finish? It's almost time after all, Masayuki replied, pointing to Rimuru and Veldora fighting. If it isn't Red-san, are you here to cause ruckus once more? A sudden female voice was heard. All of them, especially Rimuru and Veldora, stopped and looked at the source of the voice. Oh, this is bad. The rest of the boys muttered. Masayuki acted as if nothing happened. Both Sue and Ranga went into their respective shadows. Benimaru was left terrified. Gobta is hesitating to jump out of the window to escape, and Diablo being Diablo. While Zejin is left unfazed as usual, properly carrying the black box in his hands. You are Shuna, if I remembered it correctly, Guy replied, looking down at Shuna due to their height difference. Indeed I am. Surprisingly, Red Sand still remembers the name of mine. Shuna softly laughs while covering her mouth. How couldn't I remember? I acknowledged you to call me by my name after all, Guy replied with a grin. In fact, due to Shuna unrelenting will or guts, she accidentally called him by his old name when Guy was nonchalantly visiting Tempest. Until then, she started calling him Red instead of Guy, which Guy accepted. To earn the respect from the second world's strongest or from one of the primordial demons is something people with high power is worth dying for to achieve. Rimuru quickly grabbed the Bakken on the distracted Veldora's hand and dismissed the barrier around them. He immediately stored both of the weapons back to his stomach as Shuna was approaching them. Then could I humbly ask for Emperor Masayuki and Red Sand to leave this room? Shuna turned around and asked. Both of them reluctantly agreed since they were here for different matters, but seeing Shuna smile with her eyes closed, they internally decided to talk about it in different time. Diablo happily followed them out of the room since his master ordered him to accommodate them for their needs. As for you, Mr. Veldora, Shuna looks at him. Veldora was already closing his eyes waiting for the impending doom to come. Your assistant Cherries is looking for you, please go back to the labyrinth. Veldora blinks his eyes in surprise processing the information that was given to him. Labyrinth. Cherries. Got it, I'll be going ahead. Rimuru. Not wanting to get punished, he quickly went out. Sensei has left the box. Zejin spoke. I'll be leaving, please excuse me. He bows to Rimuru and followed by closing the open door. And as for the both of you, Shuna looks at Benimaru and Gobta in the corner. Let's go outside, Master here needs to mentally prepare himself, so let's not bother him anymore. Absolutely. Yes, Sue. Shuna chuckled at their replies. We will be excusing ourselves then, Master. If you need something just call us, she said. Thank you. I appreciate it, Rimuru replied with a smile on his face. As the door made that click noise, he heaved a sigh of relief before the deafening silence fills the room. Rimuru properly closed the curtains in the room. After he's done with it, he walked and sat at the edge of the bed. Seal. Master. Seal had already materialized at his back, and knowing this, Rimuru gave out a light laugh. It seems the tuxedo you are wearing has some light scratches and cuts. May I fix them, Master? Please do, Seal. Then I suggest for you to stand up. Rimuru followed on what Seal said. He stood up and raised both of his arms on the side. He could see a faint glow on his back, meaning that Seal had already started doing her thing. The silent atmosphere lingered to the both of them. Rimuru finds this somewhat relaxing since it's Seal, his partner that he trusts the most. The repair is done. Seal wraps her arms around his stomach and putting her chin on his shoulder, giving his master a hug. Rimuru could feel her body heat and her calm breathing from his cheeks, especially the ample chest on his back. He replied by putting one of his hand by her head, gently rubbing the head of her partner. If only I have known what were you feeling back then. Would I have won you over? She muttered. Seal. Rimuru was confused on what she said. Seal tightened her hug around him. Would I have possibly monopolized you all by myself? She asked. Of course. We're partners after all. You know, like having their backs covered from one another and hang out, talk and such. Isn't this what you are doing, one of them? Rimuru replied. Seal hummed on his answer. It seems Master doesn't get it. Before he could ask, Seal threw him to the bed, straddling and pinning both of his arms down. Rimuru looks at Seal, who was on top of him wearing such dangerously revealing sweater. And search V killer to know what I mean. She forcefully hold on one of Rimuru's wrist, putting his hand on her chest, earning a stifled moan from it. Master. Let's leave this place. Together, she uttered, looking down on him. Seal. What are you doing? Let me go, Rimuru exclaimed. He tried to get loose from her grasp, but surprisingly he can't, whatsoever, with his hand still stuck on her chest, and the other pinned on the side of the bed. There was a small smile on her face as he looks at her master, struggling to get himself free from her. She pushes the hand that was on her chest to the side of the bed. She leaned closer to Rimuru's face, mere centimeters left in between them. Master, she continued. You have done so much for this place, isn't it time to take a break? What are you blabbering about? He furiously replied. She shook her head in response. Didn't you thought of this long ago? That was back then and things are different now. Seal, let me go, Rimuru replied with a darkened expression on his face. Seal paid no heed to her master's call, ignoring him, stuck on a loop saying both of them should leave this country. Slap. Rimuru's right arm slipped free from her grip, hitting her on the face. It took her a few seconds processing on what had happened to the both of them, before feeling the stinging sensation from her cheeks. Strange. She was not supposed to feel pain. But why did she? Seal. A voice called her back to the reality. She looks at her master that was no longer beneath him in the bed, standing with his back facing her. With the war over and things settled down, the time of peace has come. I know what you're doing is only for the sake of me, but please, he heavily sighed and continued, include the others too, especially to the one I love, Chloe. Rimuru silently walks out of the room without batting an eye of her. Seal was now left alone in the quiet room, all by herself. She grabbed the sheets on the bed and brought it closer to her face. His scent. His beloved master's scent. Didn't you wish for me when you were reborn into this world, master? She spoke with her voice muffled with the sheets. You said you wanted a partner, right? You have me, all by yourself. But why? Why did you choose her? She yelled out. What's the purpose of me then? I was yours and you should have been mine. I was with you the longest, master, I was, she screamed into the sheets, holding it tightly. It's all her fault. Yes, it's her fault. That scum of a heroine that took master away from her. How could not she be wrong? She was perfect, too perfect. That only her master can use her for all he could want to. Everything is for her master, everything is within his grasp since she has her. But he picked that heroine instead. Why would master pick a girl who's only good at turning back the time? If only Seal nipped the bud sooner. Apot spoke with voice laced with anger. She can make a clone of a world with a replica of his master to sat her deeds. No, that's not enough. Chloe gets to have the original while she gets to have a low-end quality of her master. Origins. Time. I can do better at both. Apot grinned. A new murky thought sprung up her mind. If she can't have the master this time, no one does. It's a possession that only belongs to her and her alone. Then I'll start from the beginning where it all began.